Good morning, Year 10. I hope you're all doing well and have had a lovely weekend and are happy to push through on your last day of home learning before you get the excitement of being back in school. Okay, open up your classwork books, put today's date. You're still in the language section of your classwork book, okay? So we're on the Jaws extract still. So your first task you'll do now is to read lines 16 to 20. Again, that is the section that I have put at the bottom of this slide. And I want you to write down 4 things we are told about the fish. Okay, 4 things in this section only we are told about the fish. While you do that, press pause. I'm going to go on to the next slide. So, your lesson objective today is to plan a question for response. Okay, and there is today's date just in case you were unsure. Please get that LO written down and underlined along with the date question for practice. Sorry, not the date, I meant the title. I'm going crazy. Okay, so below is an example. It is not an example that links to your extract. It is a random example just to show you what a question for looks like. Okay, so focus on this part of your answer. Sorry, box this part of your answer on the second part of the source. From line 31 to the end. Usually question 4 takes you to the end section. Okay, so it might just be one paragraph. It might be across 2 paragraphs, but it will focus on that end part of the source. And then it says a student said. Now it will often say a critic, a student, or a teacher. They're the 3 most probable that it will say. A student said this part of the story where the men encounter the Tyrannosaurus Rex shows Eccles is right to panic. The monster is terrifying. To what extent do you agree? In your response, you could consider your own impressions of Eccles' reaction. So therefore, 1, do you think he panics? Okay. Evaluate how the writer describes the monster. Do you think the description of the monster makes it sound terrifying? Support your response with references to the text. So both when you're evaluating how terrifying the monster's description is, that has to be supported with evidence. Where you're exploring and deciding on whether you think Eccles' reaction is panic, you have to support that with evidence from the text. Now I want you to write these 3 questions at the top of the slide down and answer them. So what is different about this question? How is this question different to that of question 1, question 2 and question 3? Okay, remember question 1 is the 4 things, question 2 is how is language used to describe or present, and question 3 is how has the structure been used to interest the reader. So how is this question different? What are the 4 key aspects of this question? And what is the first thing you need to do? So, what is the question really asking you? So, question 4, it's an evaluation. You need to express your own ideas and feelings about a particular statement. Okay? So, give your own impression. Evaluating means weighing up, considering how the writer has created these impressions and how effective they are. Just giving me how they've been created isn't enough for this question. That's too much like a question 2. You need to say, right, how has the writer done this? And then to what degree have they achieved what they're trying to do? I.e., how have they tried to make the Tyrannosaurus Rex terrifying and how successfully have they done that? And support your opinions with quotations from the text. So if we think about that and we go back to this question, okay? So we've got 4 different things that we need, that are our focus, okay? 1, we're told the part of the source that we need to focus on. Okay, so if you wrote that down as an answer to that question, give yourself a tick. If you didn't, add it, okay? We're given a statement. In that statement, we're given 2 key things. 1, the statement tells us that we're looking for Eccles and his panic. Okay, so when you're reading that section back through and planning your answer, you would, if this was a question you're answering, need to focus on what Eccles is doing and whether or not that presents panic. Then the next thing within this statement that you need to focus on is the monster and how it's being described, and then decide, does that description make it sound terrifying? first thing you need to do, to what extent do you agree? Well, that's what you need to decide. Now, one rule for this question is you always have to at least, okay, partly agree. I would suggest you always mostly agree or completely agree, because whatever the statement is, the majority of the evidence in that extract will support that statement. They deliberately create a statement that is supported by the extract. Now, you don't have to agree with everything, or you might not completely agree. There are some elements of things in there where Eccles actually appears quite calm, or there's something about the monster that takes the edge off of it being terrifying. But you have to at least partially or mostly agree, okay? And you have to decide to which degree do you do that and why. What are the key things in that text, in that section of the text, that make you agree? So it's a 20 mark, which means for writing this you have 20 minutes. So you need to think about what is the difference between explain and evaluate. Explain. How does the writer use language to present the relationship between the boys? So therefore, that all you've got to do is identify what language, i.e. word choices, devices that the writer has used, and tell us how that presents that relationship. So here's what they've done. Here's what my inference on what they've done is. This is what it suggests to us about that relationship. But evaluate is to what extent do you agree? So you have to say, right, this is how they've done it. This is my inference from it. And then you have to evaluate and decide how successfully have they achieved what is in that statement. So like I was just saying before, for example, with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, maybe there are aspects of that description that are terrifying, huge jaws, a terrifying roar, something like that. But is there something about the T-Rex that stops it being too terrifying? Is there something that seems quite gentle, or is there something that seems to present it as having a vulnerability that therefore you think actually you'd be able to defeat this? Okay, so you have to evaluate how successfully have they achieved that aim. So go through your extract, the Jaws extract, okay, and using a highlighter, identify all the language and structural features you can find in the extract. So, structural feature, have we got foreshadowing? Where's what sentence length? How does that impact on anything? Are there short, sharp sentences that add drama and tension? Are there long, complex sentences that give us lots of depth of detail? Sentence types, the tone. I would potentially use different colours for this. One colour would be for where we see a positive tone, where things are either calm or happy or playful. And then a different colour for where we've got a negative tone, where we've got that hint of danger, that hint of disaster. Narrative voice. What type of narrative voice is there? Any repetition? Okay. Any key word or phrase that we see being repeated, possibly in one sentence, possibly throughout a paragraph, maybe even repeated through different paragraphs. Language features. Where have we got metaphors or simile? Where do you like to see personification? Can you identify key noun classes, i.e. nouns, adjectives, verbs, adverbs, pronouns, prepositions, that help to build an impression of either the boy or the fish? Pause here while you do that. Keep that list in front of you so you can keep referring back to it. I'm just going to go on to the next slide. So, your question on Jaws. A student, having read this section of the text, the writer builds tension through focusing on the fish's actions. To what extent do you agree? Okay, 20 marks. Everyone is always 20 marks. So write about your own impressions of the character. So therefore, what impression do you get of the fish through their actions? Evaluate how the writer has created these impressions. How has the writer created tension through those fish's actions? And what are your key quotes that you're going to use? So here I want you to make a little tea table, okay? Agree evidence. So on the left-hand side, you're going to pick out the quotes that describe the fish's actions and create tension. Then you need to explain, how do these actions create tension? What do they suggest? Is there a sense of it being predatory? Is there a sense of it growing closer? Is there a sense of it readying for attack? Is there a sense of it hunting? Okay. And then on the right hand side, disagree evidence. So how else does the author build tension? Okay. What other techniques do they use? Is tension created in elements where we only are told about the boy as opposed to being told about the fish? Okay. So therefore that might lead to a partly agree rather than completely agree. Okay. This table should not be rushed. You need to go through that extract and pick out those quotes carefully. Give me your inference and link it to tension. How is tension built in this? Okay. Really think about what is it it's implying, what is it it's making you as a reader start to feel or predict or think is about to happen. This is the end of the slide for today. Please email your work to your class teacher unless they've put an assignment on Teams, in which case upload the work to the assignment created by your teacher on Teams. Have a lovely rest of your day, everybody, and we all look forward to seeing you in school tomorrow.